like fun, and they value creativity. One of their stated values is be a little bit weird. And you'll notice they are a little bit weird, okay? So when individuals come together and find something that unites them that's greater than their individual competence, then something very important happens. The group gels, and it changes from a group of highly motivated but fairly individually centric people into something larger, into a tribe that becomes aware of its own existence. Stage 4 tribes can do remarkable things, but you'll notice we're not at the top of the mountain yet. There is, in fact, another stage. Now, some of you may not recognize the scene that's up here, and if you take a look at the headline of Stage 5, which is Life is Great, this may seem a little incongruous. This is a scene or a snippet from the Truth and Reconciliation process in South Africa, for which Desmond Tutu won the Nobel Prize. Now, think about that. South Africa, terrible atrocities had happened in the society, and people came together focused only on those two values, truth and reconciliation. There was no roadmap. No one had ever done anything like this before. And in this atmosphere where the only guidance was people's values and their noble cause, what this group accomplished was historic. And people at the time feared that South Africa would end up going the way that Rwanda has gone, descending into one skirmish after another and a civil war that seems to have no end. In fact, South Africa has not gone down that road, largely because people like Desmond Tutu set up a Stage 5 process to involve the thousands and perhaps millions of tribes in the country to bring everyone together. So people hear this and they conclude the following, as did we in doing the study. Okay, got it. I don't want to talk Stage 1. That's like, life sucks. Who wants to talk that way? I don't want to talk like they do with the particular DMV that's close to where Dave lives. I really don't want to just say I'm great because that kind of sounds narcissistic and then I won't have any friends. Saying we're great, that sounds pretty good, but I should really talk Stage 5, right? Life is great. Well, in fact, there are 3 somewhat counterintuitive findings that come out of all this. The first one, if you look at the Declaration of Independence and actually read it, the phrase that sticks in many of our minds is things about inalienable rights. I mean, that's Stage 5, right? Life is great, oriented only by our values, no other guidance. In fact, most of the document is written at Stage 2. My life sucks because I live under a tyrant, also known as King George. We're great. Who's not great? England. Sorry. Well, what about other great leaders? What about Gandhi? What about Martin Luther King? I mean, surely these were people who just preached life is great, right? Just one little bit of happiness and joy after another. In fact, Martin Luther King's most famous line was at Stage 3. He didn't say, we have a dream. He said, I have a dream. Why did he do that? Because most people are not at Stage 5. 2% are at Stage 1. About 25% are at Stage 2, saying in effect, my life sucks. 48% of working tribes say, these are employed tribes, say, I'm great, and you're not, and we have to duke it out every day, so we resort to politics. Only about 22% of tribes are at Stage 4, oriented by our values, saying we're great, and our values are beginning to unite us. Only 2% of tribes get to Stage 5, and those are the ones that change the world. So the first little finding from this is that leaders need to be able to talk all the levels so that you can touch every person in society. But you don't leave them where you found them, okay? Tribes can only hear one level above and below where they are. So we have to have the ability to talk all the levels to go to where they are. And then leaders nudge people within their tribes to the next level. I'd like to show you some examples of this. One of the people we interviewed was Frank Jordan, former mayor of San Francisco. Before that, he was chief of police in San Francisco. And he grew up essentially in Stage 1. And you know what changed his life? It was walking into one of these, a boys and girls club. Now, here's what happened to this person who eventually became mayor of San Francisco. He went from being alive and passionate at Stage 1, remember, life sucks, despairing hostility, I will do whatever it takes to survive, to walking into a boys and girls club, folding his arms, sitting down in a chair and saying, wow, my life really sucks. I don't know anybody. I mean, if I was into boxing like they were, then my life wouldn't suck, but I don't, so it does. So I'm going to sit here in my chair and not do anything. In fact, that's progress. We move people from Stage 1 to Stage 2 by getting them in a new tribe and then over time, getting them connected. So What about moving from stage 3 to stage 4? I want to argue that we are doing that right here. TED represents a set of values. And as we unite around these values, something really interesting begins to emerge. If you want this experience to live on as something historic, then at the reception tonight, I'd like to encourage you to do something beyond what people normally do and call networking, which is not just to meet new people and extend your reach and extend your influence, but instead find someone you don't know and find someone else you don't know and introduce them. That's called a triadic relationship. See, people who build world-changing tribes do that. They extend the reach of their tribes by connecting them, not just to myself so that my following is greater, but I connect people who don't know each other to something greater than themselves. And ultimately, that's to their values. But we're not done yet, because then how do we go from stage 4, which is great, to stage 5? The story that I like to end with is this. It comes out of a place called the Gallup organization. You know, they do polls, right? So at stage 4, we're great. Who's not great? Pretty much everybody else who does polls. Okay, if Gallup releases a poll on the same day that NBC releases a poll, people pay attention to the Gallup poll. Okay, we understand that. So they were bored. They wanted to change the world. So here was the question someone asked. How could we, instead of just polling, you know, what Asia thinks or what the United States thinks or who thinks what about Obama versus McCain or something like that, what does the entire world think? And they found a way to do the first ever world poll. They had people involved who were Nobel laureates in economics, who reported being bored. And suddenly they pulled out sheets of paper and were trying to figure out, how do we survey the population of sub-Saharan Africa? How do we survey populations that don't have access to technology and speak languages we don't speak, and we don't know anyone who speaks those languages? Because in order to achieve on this great mission, we have to be able to do it. Incidentally, they did pull it off, and they released the first ever world poll. So I'd like to leave you with these thoughts. First of all, we all form tribes, all of us. You're in tribes here. Hopefully you're extending the reach of the tribes that you have. But the question on the table is this: what kind of an impact are the tribes that you are in making? You're hearing one presentation after another, often representing a group of people, a tribe, about how they have changed the world. If you do what we've talked about, you listen for how people actually communicate in the tribes that you're in, and you don't leave them where they are, you nudge them forward. You remember to talk all 5 culture stages because we got people in all 5 around us. Then the question I'd like to leave you with is this: will your tribes change the world? Thank you very much.